Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3967. Today's date is March 27, 2026. It's been almost like a night at 10:14 p.m. Sorry about this. Maybe you are kind of like getting little bit of noises in the background. Probably. Actually, this thing na, there is a kind of like a practice is actually happening, a dance practice about a like a like basically this thing na कि uh okay okay what exactly is this dance practice actually happening? Okay, sorry, I'm like basically gone out. Okay, so basically this thing na 14th of April is arriving. Today's date is the 27th of March. Okay, 14th of April, it's been almost like a 15-17 days are still remaining. Okay, but what is actually happening 14th of April? Well, I'm belong to the scheduled caste community. Also, I live in scheduled caste community too. Everyone are here are belong to the scheduled caste community, specifically Buddhist. Okay, but usually in India, like a Buddhist is a kind of like a thing. Okay, but it's a kind of like a verbal stuff. Like a verbal means what? Ki like verbally we say we are Buddhist. Okay, but technical point of perspective, we actually kind of like a say Mahar 37. Okay, so all right. Now 14th of April is of our freedom fighter Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, who kind of like assembly give us right to educate and things and that, because India was kind of like assembly casteism a lot and things and that. And our previous generation, okay, are kind of like a Shudras. Okay, those are kind of like assembly just, yeah. So basically this thing na ki Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar understand the kind of like a crippled in the community, and they gave us right to all the Shudras and things and that, so that they would kind of like learn, educate and things and that. Okay, so since then we became, and as also is this thing, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is a kind of like a simply just shifted our religion from Shudras to Buddha. So right now we are also Buddha. Also we are kind of like a Buddha. Like I am kind of like a Buddhist religion. Okay, my father, mother, and I also follow as a Buddhist kind of like some things and that. But technical point of perspective, I usually kind of like my caste is a like a SC Mahar 37. Like okay, like a scheduled caste community. Like what is exactly your caste? So basically, if you kind of like put the Buddhist, then it doesn't really get on the like basically I still remember that when I kind of like fill up my scholarship form. So in the scholarship form, okay, if you put the Buddhist, so there is no caste yet. Like it is, but it's not. Okay, like we have to put SC and subcaste is a Mahar 37. Okay, then then the whole kind of like entire process is actually happening and things like that. So technical point of perspective, we are Mahar 37, like a scheduled caste community Mahar 37. Okay, and a verbal point of perspective, we are kind of like a Buddhist. Okay, but still is this thing 14th of April is a kind of like one of the very essential and important day, because Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar actually born that day. Okay, and we are also kind of like give them a tribute regarding about, because of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar was there, like like they kind of like give us rights and things and that, and that's why we are kind of like a bitterly educated and kind of like develop that much. Like basically my father got a job and they kind of like built his house and things and that, and I'm kind of like simply living on that house and kind of like dreaming about something really big. Okay, so get it. So basically it's this thing na ki it's really essential to kind of like celebrate this kind of like Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. Okay, whatever. It's not a kind of like a topic that we're gonna talk about that. Okay, whatever. So let's just talk about the question. Okay, let's go. All right. So the question is, wait. Okay, how well do pre-service teacher education institution prepared teacher for real classroom with multilingual learner, mixed ability level and diverse social background? Oh, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what is at least this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is Indian education system question. Okay, why am I asking this question to myself? I wanted to become a education minister of India in the future. Okay, and I wanted to change the entire education system of India. Okay, it's a very big mouth to kind of like say this thing, but it actually happened in future. Okay, what I'm doing right now is just asking question that what I just wanted to aware of that. Ki what exactly is this thing? What is actually my plan? How do I supposed to change that thing and that and that and that? So basically, asking this question, I would be more aware of my plans, my execution styles. What kind of like a protocol should I supposed to be execute? What is actually my guidelines? How is actually process actually happening? Because it's a very big thing. Like basically, if I'm gonna say it's one of the biggest thing, it might gonna change a lot, so much. Okay, so I wanted to implement and I don't want to mess up. I will gonna do this thing after 20 year. Okay, but right now I'm gonna asking this question to myself so that I would be more aware of that, more understand regarding about what kind of action should I supposed to be take regarding about education system. All right. Okay. Now regarding about this question, the question says that how do well, sorry, how well do pre-service teacher education institution wait prepared teacher for real classroom with multilingual learner, mixed ability level and diverse social background. Okay, let me kind of like explain this question in simple language. Okay, I'm using Gemini by the way, so that kind of like a somebody I'm just understanding question kind of like a bit more simple. Okay, so the question says that the training teacher them what to teach math or science, but it doesn't always teach them how to handle the room of 50 different human being. That's really good. Like basically this question is kind of like a more about a kind of like a something a kind of like a teacher training, that how supposed to be kind of like a somebody make our teacher as good as possible as it can. Okay, there are multiple kind of like a factor are kind of like a mention here, a language barrier. Okay, then everyone learns differently, different life stories. These are kind of like a only three topic that I have to be covered. All right, yeah. Now first of all, let me kind of like explain this thing question in simple language, even more simple. Okay, the question actually says this thing that how do I supposed to kind of like make my teacher are as good as possible as it can. Okay, so okay, let me kind of like verify regarding about everything. First of all, where this actually question came from. So same thing is that I just kind of like went to ChatGPT, kind of like say I wanted to become this person, education minister of India. Suggest me at least like 100 question. ChatGPT kind of like suggest me hundreds of question. This is one of those question. Now again, now regarding about my changes, I wanted to implement Gurukul program. Okay, yeah. I will gonna mention Gurukul program. Like this is the Gurukul program. This is my idea, and this is I will gonna change. Okay, entire education system means a Gurukul program. I wanted to implement my Gurukul program. Okay, now let's talk about the Gurukul program. Okay, and regarding about teachers and things and that and that. First of all, let's just ask question to myself that why does in conventional method in education system teacher are not really that much productive or teacher not really that much good? Why is not? Why the teacher are not that much good? The problem is that the first problem is that there is no respect for teachers. Like there is no respect for teacher profession. One thing. Another thing, no one wants to become a teacher. Like basically this thing, if I'm gonna say passionately, I wanted to become a IT software engineer or things and that. But you will gonna find a very less amount of people who will gonna passionately gonna say, I will become a teacher. Probably very less. Okay. Now because of this thing, very less amount of people are kind of like a chose a passion about teaching. Now, the people who kind of like a chose a passion about teaching are only for government job. That's it. Okay, like basically is this thing na ki they don't really have any kind of like a passion, but they wanted a government job. And when they get a government job, it's a stable job. No will gonna fire you and things and that. You will gonna kind of like live the life very freely and things and that. Okay. So this is also another reason too. Okay. Now another thing. Usually is this thing in education system, in conventional method of education system, okay, usually is this thing na ki they don't really hire a kind of like a youth teacher to kind of like somebody teach things. They kind of like a hire such a kind of like a candidate or such a kind of like a somebody, like they don't really hire, like it's a kind of like a thing that na in conventional method of teaching process, okay, yeah, usually whoever the kind of like a people who are kind of like a teacher, that teacher is kind of like a teaching for till the retirement and things and that. Okay, yeah. Like basically this thing na ki in Indian education system there is no motive for teachers to teach good or teach better. There is no motive at all. There is no kind of like somebody that ki score that they have to do and things and that. Probably they just have kind of like a one thing is that ki just complete the syllabus. Okay. Now another thing problem is that ki our education system is also very crippled too. Okay, yeah. Because teacher have a kind of like a particular kind of like a some strict thing that ki till the end of semester or till the end of year you have to complete the syllabus. And because of that ki they have to complete the syllabus, they are kind of like a be more focus on complete syllabus, not focus on kind of like a simply that ki student are getting the information or not. Okay, yeah. Another thing, teacher is the only profession where kind of like a something other government things are kind of like a take teacher. What do you mean by that? In Indian general election or any Lok Sabha election in India, who will actually conduct that election? Okay, you might say the like a election commission of India, right? Election commission of India is a body who can conduct the election, right? But they are not kind of like a conducting the entire thing. Okay, like basically this thing na, the execution of election commission is actually done by they are hiring teachers. Okay, so basically this thing na ki most of the government teacher, they kind of like somebody left their kind of like somebody syllabus in the school and they kind of like somebody held into the kind of like election duty and election kind of like things, and they kind of like spend for almost like a month or two. Now another thing is that na ki our election is a kind of like a very much different. Like basically Lok Sabha election is happening is actually kind of like a once in a 5 year, and state election is actually also happening kind of like assembly once in a 5 year. So and also state election are kind of like assembly very differently. Like that means every month there is a kind of like election actually happening all around the India and things and that. Maharashtra, Jharkhand, Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, everywhere. Okay, and every random and things and that. So basically is this thing that an election commission is just kind of like a controlling body, and the execution means like that the soldier of that particular election are teachers, government teachers. So basically is this thing they are kind of like a somebody take that thing, like take that like a teacher kind of like a teacher will kind of like a do this, conduct this election and things and that. Okay, and remaining amount of time, who will gonna teach the student? I don't know, probably maybe kind of like a junior or things and that. Like basically is this thing na ki a teacher is a kind of like such a profession that government wanted to do so many things instead of just teaching. Okay, like basically they just want you like a government want you to do this thing that ki you have to complete the syllabus, you have to kind of like do the test, you have to do the kind of like assembly exam, you have to kind of like do the kind of like assembly election things and that. But they don't really focus on teaching, and that's the biggest problem. Because of this thing na, we don't really produce that much amount of good quality of teacher. Another thing is that there is no motive at all. There is no motive at all. If the system is not really kind of like a wanted to create that quality of teacher, why does teacher will kind of like only become the quality of teacher? They will not, na. Like they just want to become, yeah, like basically I will get the salary, government what is actually providing me, I'm doing it that, I'm kind of like completing the syllabus as fast as it can, even if the student kind of like understand it or not, doesn't really matter. Okay, yeah. So they just do it. Okay, yeah. They don't really care about the teacher learning and things like that. Because of all those things, it's a kind of like a cycle. Okay, yeah. And that cycle is kind of like a simply creating even more kind of like unproductive kind of like a teacher. And because of this thing, this cycle is kind of like a continue. And that's why we don't really have that quality of teacher. And because of we don't really have that quality of teacher, we don't really have that quality of kind of like a student. Okay, yeah. So what do I supposed to do? What exactly is this thing? What exactly my Gurukul program will gonna offer? Okay, first of all, before I start any kind of like a training and things and that, let me kind of like explain regarding about my Gurukul program, how is actually happening. Okay, first of all, in my Gurukul program, teacher will get kind of like a get very good salary. Okay, I will kind of like a give them kind of like a very handsome salary. Okay, like a basically equivalent to a kind of like a something like that ki top class engineer or doctor or something like that. Okay, yeah. From today's point of perspective, it gonna started from 1 lakh rupees. In future, probably inflation point of perspective, understand that thing. Means like that I'm telling this thing that in 2026 point of perspective, like if I initiate the Gurukul program today, then what kind of like a salary would I supposed to be give to teacher is actually started from 1 lakh rupees. Start from 1 lakh rupees, and it kind of like a goes beyond with the kind of like a credibility and talent that they have and things and that. Okay, yeah. So understand from the future point of perspective, like if I kind of like initiate this Gurukul program in kind of like a 2046, then probably the salary is actually from that point of perspective. Okay, so I wanted to give very handsome salary. Okay, yeah. First of all, why? Okay, yeah. Why are you kind of like giving them very handsome salary? One of the biggest problem is that कि usually is this thing na कि motive is not only come from kind of like some government kind of like giving the support. Sometimes money is something really essential. Like let me tell you one thing na, if you are kind of like getting money regarding about the kind of like things that you are doing, so basically, and if you are kind of like getting very good money, so you will kind of like do that work very passionately, okay, very properly and things and that. So that is one of the biggest thing. Okay, yeah. So I wanted to kind of like give them very handsome salary so that they would kind of like do the work really much better. One thing. Okay, not just salary. Another thing is that ki, if I'm kind of like giving them that much handsome salary, that means I am expecting that ki they are supposed to be good. They are literally supposed to be a good at the teaching. Okay, yeah. So basically, I will gonna kind of like verify that ki they are kind of like really good and things and that. I will gonna talk about the training first, but let's talk about the Gurukul program. How does kind of like Gurukul program teacher like a how does Gurukul program will kind of like treats to teachers? Okay, yeah. First of all, salary that I already mentioned. Now let's talk about the another thing, election. I will make sure that my teacher are kind of like simply only do one thing, teaching, not any kind of like election duty, not any kind of like some stuff regarding about election commission of India. They will kind of like figure it out by themselves. I don't really care about that whole. I will not gonna provide my teacher for that election duty. Definitely not. Okay, definitely not. I will not gonna do that thing. Okay, this is the another thing. Third, my teacher doesn't really have any syllabus to complete. What do you mean? In conventional method of kind of like education, usually is this thing kind of like a focus on completing the syllabus, but that is not. There is no kind of like a syllabus at all. Let me tell you one thing. My Gurukul program is kind of like a base on app. Okay, yeah. Student will kind of like somebody is this thing. Okay, let me kind of like explain regarding about what exactly I want and how does it kind of like implement. Okay, basically is this thing. My final goal is that the student should supposed to be learn, understand, okay, observe and imagine. Okay, two things that I want from student: observation and imagination. I wanted two students should supposed to be observe thing. They have to be skills of observation and imagination. Okay, what are those skills? When you observe things, you consume the information all around you. Everywhere is knowledge. How you see the world, how the fan is actually working, why does kind of like a sky looks blue, why does I kind of like a assembly the see the sound, why does I kind of like assembly if I hit the pipa I get this sound, why I kind of like getting this thing. Ask this question. Observation. I wanted my student should supposed to be observe things all around. Okay, yeah. Second skill that I want, imagination. I want my student should supposed to be imagine. Now, how exactly is that skill? Imagine means like that. Like I am a filmmaker. Like basically right now I haven't really made any kind of like a film, but I have a kind of like a brain of kind of like a thought as a kind of like a filmmaker. And filmmaker design the film, create the film, design the entire world. Like, and that world is actually created by the imagination. Okay, yeah. I wanted my students should supposed to be imagine things. Example is this thing. Let's just say this is a motor is kind of like a running. So my student should supposed to be imagine that how does motor working. They have to be see the motor. There is a propeller. There is a copper coil. There is a kind of like some electromagnetic is actually happening. They have to be imagine things. When they see the motor, they observe that motor, and when they're observing, they see the every parts. They see, okay, this is a propeller. This is a copper coil. This is a kind of like external coil. This is a kind of like electromagnetism actually happening. This kind of like electricity actually came from over there. Like this is a switchboard. This is a kind of like a this and that and that and that. Imagination. Okay, yeah. These are the two things that I want: observation and imagination. Okay. Now basically this thing I will not going to talk about that. What will gonna happen after they kind of like do this thing? It will gonna millions of kind of like somebody credible will gonna happen. But let's talk about that. How is actually happening? Like how that particular app is actually happening. How does kind of like somebody those skills will implement? Those skills are implement by first thing is that self-learning. Okay, literally self-learning means like that no one will gonna kind of like teach you better until and unless you want. Yeah. So if you are learning by yourself, you are kind of like learning more. So basically, I have to be kind of like emphasize more about self-learning. Okay, yeah. I wanted my students should supposed to be learn 60% of the knowledge by self-learning. Okay, and 40% will kind of like learn by the teacher and application and things and that and that. Now let's talk about the self-learning. How does my student should supposed to be kind of like assembly learn things by self-learning? I will gonna provide an application named Gurukul app. In the Gurukul app, you have to do a kind of like assembly homework. Okay, kind of like assembly homework, and you have to do that homework every single day. Okay. So because of this homework, you have to do this. App understand this thing. App will kind of like simply design a particular kind of like some homework in a such a way that it asks kind of like a very easy question. Okay, yeah. So that you understand the kind of like concept. Okay, yeah. And since you understand the concept, it kind of like increase the difficulty and things and that and that. When it increase the difficulty, you understand more. Okay, yeah. And this is how kind of like self-learn is actually happening. Means like that my app will kind of like teach you from simple to better to better to even better. Okay, yeah. This is what kind of like self-learning. Okay, that you are kind of like solving things by yourself. Okay, yeah. No one is kind of like teaching you things and that and that. If there is a kind of like a problem, there is a kind of like some lectures are actually available in the application. You kind of like watch that lecture, and this is kind of like things like basically this is, I wanted that my students should supposed to do this kind of like a homework by themselves. Okay, yeah. That is called kind of like some self-learning. Even if they kind of like get the problem in the app, there is also available too. Okay, there is also lecture available too, things and that, so that kind of like I will kind of like explain this thing in even more simple language in the application. Okay, yeah. Now this is the one thing. Another thing, my app and my teacher are connected to each other. Okay, and both have mission to kind of like teach the student concept in as much as simple language possible. Okay, yeah. App is kind of like doing the best thing. Okay, yeah. But how does teacher is actually kind of like dealing with that? So let's imagine a kind of like things. Okay, yeah. So there is a kind of like 50 student who are at the standard 7, and they are kind of like assembly kind of like learning about trigonometry. Okay, right? Now basically this thing, my application will kind of like give them a kind of like assembly homework regarding about trigonometry by simple through and that and that. Now basically is this thing, some people are really good at trigonometry, some people may not. Okay, yeah. By the way, this is the first time they are kind of like a learning trigonometry. They haven't really took any kind of like a class, don't really know nothing really about. They just kind of like a, the app will kind of like a drop it trigonometry equation, things and that with very simple language. With very simple means like that key, just like start from 2 plus 2 2x and things and that. Okay, yeah. Now basically this thing, because of this app, student might gonna understand, they will solve the problem. Now another thing, regarding about the trigonometry, not every student will kind of like a perform much more better. Some student might be, some student may not. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing, if some student are really good at trigonometry, they understanding the concept by themselves, they are really good. Okay, yeah, they are really good. They don't really require any kind of like assembly classes or things like that. Okay, yeah. But the student who are not really understanding the concept of trigonometry, and even after they are kind of like a learning the classes from the apps, but learning the kind of like a lecture, they don't really understand. So what exactly happened? App will kind of like what will gonna is that app will kind of like a simply gather such a people. Gather means like that app will have kind of like a information regarding about these students are not really good at trigonometry, and they kind of like share this information to the teacher. By the way, what exactly is this thing? It's actually happening in the Gurukul. Okay, now again I will gonna explain what is exactly Gurukul. Gurukul is a place where almost like a student is a place of campus where boys hostel, girls hostel, school, mess, medical, library, playground, everything. It's a kind of like a big campus. Okay, in that big campus, the capacity of the student is almost like a, let's just say 1,000 to 5,000 to 10,000. Okay, means 10,000 student will kind of like stay there, live there, and they will kind of like so many things. Okay, in my Gurukul, no student will kind of like go home. No, nothing at all. They just kind of like stay there, live there, eat there, spend their time with themselves, like all each other and things and that. Okay, there is no kind of like assembly people, student will kind of like go to the school and things and that. No, I wanted my students should supposed to be stay in the Gurukul. Why? I already mentioned in the previous article. I will not gonna mention over here. Okay, so basically this thing now, student who are kind of like assembly in the Gurukul, I will have a control of their time. Okay, yeah, and I will kind of like decide that how should I supposed to be kind of like utilize their time to make them better or make them kind of like assembly good and things and that. Okay, yeah, so that I would kind of like create the structure regarding about the routine things and that, so that kind of like they would kind of like become better. As also is this thing, Gurukul is not actually focused on just education, they are actually also focused on kind of like a exercise, physical exercise, multiple things, dancing things and that, so that basically is this thing, student will kind of like get the information from so many ways. Let me tell you one thing, getting a knowledge is a one thing, like basically is this thing, you cannot get information or you cannot educate yourself unless your body is also not really wanted to, like your physical activity is also really essential to consume information inside your brain. Okay, yeah, so basically physical activity is also really essential. That's why I built this Gurukul where kind of like a student will kind of like not only play and sports and things like that, they also get the information. Okay, yeah, now let's talk about the thing. Okay, yeah, so because of this is kind of like an enclosures thing, now my app will understand this is almost like a 10,000 students are actually in this Gurukul program. Okay, in this Gurukul. Okay, yeah. Now basically this thing that because of this 10,000 student, there are almost like let's just say 50 student who are at the standard 7 and they are kind of like learning trigonometry, and in that 50 student, almost like a, let's just say 30 student are not really good at trigonometry. Okay, yeah. So what will gonna happen, they will kind of like create the batch of that 30 student and inform to the teacher. Teacher will kind of like get the information regarding about these are kind of like 30 students who are need a kind of like a better explanation regarding about trigonometry and things and that. On the app, it kind of like a schedule, teacher kind of like a schedule the lecture, and teacher will kind of like attend that lecture. Okay, and teacher will kind of like understand that what is at least what is trigonometry things and that. Okay, so basically what is actually happened. Okay, I am not focused on kind of like somebody that teacher kind of like teach everything. No, nothing really at all. I want that my student should supposed to be learn everything by self study. 60% of the information should supposed to be consumed by themselves. 60%. Okay, yeah. 40% of the information will gonna provide by the app as also the teacher. Okay, yeah. So that kind of like a burden will kind of like a things, and as also is this thing na, like basically is this thing what I wanted that na ki student interest. Okay, I want that ki students should supposed to be have interest and things and that. If the student is not really love the trigonometry, really not, he's really worse and things and that, what will gonna happen is that he app will understand his background regarding about his mathematics. He's not really good at mathematics, definitely not. So what will gonna happen is that he, it will kind of like a counselor, like basically is this thing na ki, like basically is this thing that ki if app understand that ki this particular student who didn't really like mathematics and he has a score of mathematics, he doesn't really have any kind of like a good, but this particular person is really good at social science, like let's just say history. Okay, yeah. So what will gonna happen is that ki first of all is that ki app will try to learn little bit of mathematics, but he is not really good at, then what will gonna happen that ki counselor will gonna happen. Okay, so what is actually counselor? Counselor is a kind of like a somebody is this thing that is whatever the student have problem, they would kind of like come to the counselor, and counselor career counselor, and they will kind of like say this thing, sir, this is a kind of like a thing, I am not really good at mathematics and things and that. As also is this thing, he is to kind of like showcase that he I'm not really good at. Like what exactly is this thing? Na? Like student will not gonna say, like basically is this thing na, app will kind of like understand that this particular person is not really good at mathematics. So app will kind of like notify to the career counselor, say this thing, this particular person is not really good at mathematics. Talk to him, find out regarding about what's actually problem with him and things and that. Now counselor will kind of like talk to this particular student, say this thing, why are you not really good at mathematics? What is actually problem? What is actually is this thing? Try to kind of like connect. As also the counselor is a kind of like simply talking very niceful, very peacefully, and very kind of like calmly regarding about taking everything very much probably try to become a friend and understand what is actually problem. If that particular student is doesn't wanted to this thing, doesn't wanted to learn mathematics and things like that, he kind of like thinks that this, and he's pursue his career in a social science like a economics, history and things and that, then students like counselor will gonna say, but it will gonna impact a lot. Okay, because of that, he like basically in this particular context he's a dropping maths subject. Okay, because of his kind of like a dropping, he's a kind of like entire trajectory will gonna change regarding about what career choices will gonna happen. Okay, so basically this in app will wanted to make sure that ki okay, Guru program wanted to make sure that ki this particular person is wanted to kind of like build a career in history and things and that. Nothing will gonna change. Okay, the mathematic problem will kind of like somebody showcase in his app, but very less, like a very less and very kind of like a very easy and things and that, so that he just little bit aware, not too much, like just a little bit, just kind of like give them just little bit, because numbers will be available, like basically even if that particular person is kind of like somebody continue focus in history, still mathematics are still over there too. Okay, it's not really that. Okay, so basically this thing na ki app will understand, okay, this particular person is kind of like a not have interest regarding about learning the mathematics. It will not gonna drop the entire mathematics. It just kind of like a somebody the intensity of mathematics will gonna happen very less and as also very minimal, so that basically it's this thing that na, and focus on kind of like a simply social history, like history and things and that, because he's kind of like really good and things like that. So this is how actually happening regarding about that. Okay, now let's talk about the teacher. Okay, I already mentioned regarding about my program, my system, how it actually happening. Now let's talk about the teacher. Okay, how do I supposed to kind of like simply make teacher better? How do I supposed to kind of like simply saying their teaching is kind of like as good as possible? First of all, teaching is a art form. Yeah, it's a really important thing. Okay, like it's a kind of like simply comedian. Being comedian is an art form. You have to kind of like simply telling your storytelling regarding about how should you supposed to be kind of like a tell a story in kind of like a, as much as comedic point of perspective. It's an art form. Okay, so teaching is also an art form. Now let's talk about the challenges in India. Okay, first of all is that let's talk about kind of like a couple of challenges. First of all is that language barrier. That's one of the biggest problem in India. Okay, so let me kind of like tell you how I'm supposed to solve this thing. First of all, let's talk about the language barrier. In India, there are almost like hundreds of language are here. Okay, even if I live in Maharashtra, and basically this thing, my language, my Marathi language is a kind of like a bit more different than language in Pune or language in Bombay. Even if we have kind of like a spoken same Marathi language, it kind of like a accent is very different. Okay, yeah. Like basically, I live in Maharashtra, Wardha, and here are kind of like a little bit of Vidarbha Marathi. Malay, Kaileb, Detebe, Salyab, Be. It's like Malay, Tule, and things and that and that. But if you went to the Pachim Maharashtra, like basically West Maharashtra, like Pune and Mumbai, you might gonna get pure form of Marathi, Mala, Tula, and things and that and that. Okay, yeah. Now these are kind of like a, some variation in language in just one state. Okay, yeah. Now if you went to kind of like assembly south, it might be, oh my god, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, then Hindi, then Gujarati, Rajasthani. These are kind of like assembly prime language that I know. Okay, yeah, there are so many languages, Gondi languages, Marwadi language, then like if you went to south, oh my god, they have kind of like a some cluster of language, Dravidian language. That Dravidian language, sorry, Dravidian is not a language. There are so many languages. Biggest problem. Okay, so how I supposed to solve this thing? Okay, first of all is that let's talk about the kind of like a Gurukul program. Then I will kind of like explain this thing how I supposed to solve this problem. Okay, so basically is this thing, as I mentioned, my Gurukul, a Gurukul place where kind of like a you have hostel and things and that, a kind of like a 10,000 student. Let's just imagine a kind of like a Gurukul who is actually at the Nashik. Okay, capacity of that Gurukul is almost like a 10,000 student of capacity. Means 10,000 student will kind of like stay there, live there, study there, over that and that. Okay, now what is actually happened? The Gurukul is actually in the Nashik. They will kind of like make sure they will have preference of student who is actually from Nashik, who is actually from kind of like somebody surrounding towards Nashik. Like basically is this thing na, if I have a Gurukul which has a 10,000 capacity in the Nashik, I will gonna make sure that ki basically those student is actually from the Nashik. Okay, like literally from Nashik. I don't want like a basically this thing that ki some sort of student is actually from like a Chennai who would kind of like come to the Nashik Gurukul. No, he will not gonna come to the Nashik Gurukul. Why? Because language barrier. Okay, so I will gonna make sure that 10,000 students should suppose feel from the Nashik or surrounded by Nashik. Like basically this thing, let's take a kind of like a diameter. Like let's take a kind of like a radius. Okay, 100 kilometer radius. Okay, so if I have a Gurukul, draw a kind of like a circle of 100 kilometer radius. So in that 100 kilometer radius, those area, the student who actually came from that area, the student will not gonna came out from another area. Why? Because language barrier and things and that. Okay, so because of the 10,000 students are actually in the Nashik, in the Gurukul, Nashik Gurukul, those are kind of like a come from the Nashik, so they might have kind of like a almost same language. Okay, another thing, entire staff in the Gurukul program, teacher staff, cooking staff, everything, like basically like these are very big campus na, like if I try to manage this kind of like a Gurukul required kind of like a very big staff. That also big staff is also came from Nashik too. Okay, even teacher and things and that. So because of this thing, teachers are actually from Nashik, student is actually from Nashik, staff is also from Nashik too. So basically because of this thing, it's a kind of like a somebody create a similar thing. The language barrier will gonna happen very less. Okay, means like that the teacher, what kind of like a language that teacher would gonna speak, same language student will understand. Okay, so basically this is how I kind of like solve that language barrier thing. Same thing happened with a kind of like let's just say I have a Gurukul in Chennai. So basically is this thing 100 kilometer kind of like a somebody diameter, and from the people who are actually in that 100 kilometer, they will kind of like stay there. Teacher and also entire staff is actually from Chennai and things and that. So basically is this thing that Gurukul will kind of like somebody represent specific kind of like a somebody language like a Tamil, Telugu, वगैरह, and they will kind of like somebody, yeah. So this is how it kind of like manage. Like basically I wanted to create the cluster, this thing, so that I would kind of like somebody like solve this language barrier and get it. Okay, if situation, if kind of like some sort of student who is actually from uh, Kolkata, and kind of like because of kind of like a family, that particular family is actually shifted to, let's just say, Nashik. Okay, now basically is this thing that na, because of his Kolkata, he is kind of like a speak Bengali language. Okay, now he's a Nashik. Nashik is kind of like a Marathi language. So how it actually happen? What exactly is this thing? Will that particular person kind of like go to the kind of like a Kolkata for that Gurukul or what? Well, that is a kind of like a big problem. I have to be solve this problem, because this problem I'm not really sure how do I supposed to solve this thing, because like basically some kind of like some parents have a kind of like some transfers of things, and they might kind of like move somewhere. So because of that, things might been happen. Right now I don't really have any kind of like a solution for that. In the future I might gonna have it this thing, but still is this thing, this problem is kind of like a very less. Okay, yeah, actually at least almost like a 99% of the barrier, language barrier will gonna gone by this step. Okay, yeah. Now let's another problem. Everyone learns differently. Okay, everyone learn differently means like that, like basically as I mentioned, trigonometry lesson, some students are really good at trigonometry, some students are not. Some people are kind of like really good at trigonometry, then what exactly happened, they will kind of like continue doing this application and things and that. Okay, yeah. And teacher will the app will understand, Gurukul app will understand that key, okay, this particular person, like basically if that particular person is understanding by himself, he doesn't really require to go to kind of like go to the kind of like lecture and things and that. Why am I not kind of like somebody pushing a bright student to go to the kind of like a lecture? Is because of it's a waste of time. What do you mean? Like, let's just say this particular person is really good at trigonometry. Whatever the app is kind of like a throwing the equation, he kind of like a do it very rapidly. So he's already good at trigonometry, he already good at that. So why should he supposed to go to the kind of like a lecture to learn trigonometry? It's just waste of time, na? Okay, yeah. Instead of that, app will kind of like determine that key what he is not good at. Let's just say this particular person is really good at trigonometry but not good at economics. So let's just say that my app will kind of like say this thing, this particular person is really good at trigonometry but not good at economics. So let him go to the economic class. So this is what it is. I wanted to kind of like simply give them teaching regarding about the people who are not really good at. If they are really good at, why should I supposed to give them thing? App will kind of like simply let him, like basically I want self-learning. Okay, yeah, more self-learning. Like if that particular person kind of like learn by self, it's a one of the like basically this is nice. You are the only one who could kind of like somebody let you learn much more better. Okay, yeah, self-learning is one of the biggest thing, and that is what I want. Okay, yeah. Okay, understand. Okay, so this is how I kind of like somebody lecture will gonna happen and things and that. Okay, now let's talk about kind of like this is how kind of like somebody learn very differently regarding that trigonometry kind of like somebody explanation that I already explained. Okay, and now different life stories. Okay, different life stories means what? Different life story means like that na ki some student are actually come from very wealthy family, some student are kind of like come from very poor family. Okay, in conventional method of education, this might be a problem. Because of that, every student is actually go home and kind of like do their homework, like do their homework at their home. Okay, yeah. But in my Gurukul program, no one is actually going home. All my students are actually stay in Gurukul, live in Gurukul. They will kind of like solve, learn everything in Gurukul. If they wanted to go home in the weekend, they can go home. Okay, yeah, but come back. Okay, in Monday you have to do a class and things like that. Why I am not kind of like letting them go home? Because of that, I wanted to control their time. If my student have a kind of like if I have 24 hour of their time, I will kind of like utilize their time to kind of like make it much more better and things and that. So basically this point will directly eliminate like a different life story, means like no one is actually came from rich person or poor person, because this end at all. Like every student will kind of like same treatment. Even if the wealthy person or even if the kind of like not wealthy person have a kind of like a same treatment. Go to the hostel, sleep there, go to the mess, eat there, go to the library, study there, go to the school, kind of like learn there. right? So there is no kind of like a different thing. Probably in the kind of like a weekend that student might gonna go and things and that, it very impact very less. Okay, so this kind of like a problem will eliminate entirely. Okay, yeah. So this is kind of like a things. These are kind of like simply that key multiples of problem how I supposed to solve. Now in this particular kind of like a question, I didn't really kind of like a talk about the teacher. How do I supposed to kind of like a simply like a teacher thing? How do I supposed to kind of like a teacher training is actually happen? How do I supposed to kind of like a hire one of the best teacher and things and that and that? Well, for this particular topic, I will gonna talk later. Okay, yeah, because I have a lot of things to talk about this, like how I supposed to kind of like a teacher should supposed to be teach, how is kind of like art form should supposed to be execute, how like basically is this thing na ki, like basically right now I don't want to talk about this thing because it's a very okay. I will gonna talk about another time. Okay, yeah. So this is it. This is it. I should supposed to end here. Okay, and thank you.